The Nevada debate is in the rear view, but the Nevada caucus is the day after tomorrow.
Coming at us fast. Here to discuss what the Sanders campaign thinks about the Senator's debate performance last night and what they expect from the caucuses in Nevada is National Press Secretary for the campaign, Briahna Joy Gray. Great to see you.
Always a pleasure.
Good to see you, Briahna.
All right, what did you think was the most significant moment of the debate last night, or the biggest takeaways?
I think the biggest takeaway is that money can't buy you everything. Bloomberg was revealed to be a little bit of a paper tiger. I mean, I think all of us were really stunned by that debate performance and what seemed to be a lack of preparedness for some pretty obvious questions that were going to be coming down the pike.
So, Briahna, I did want to ask you before we got into more of it. There was some hot water yesterday going on about your comments about Bloomberg having a stent put into place. Just want to give you a chance to address that, as well as the birtherism comment.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. Look, I made a mistake, and I was very quick to correct it. And so, no, it is not true. Bloomberg has not had a heart attack. The statistic that I was referencing is the fact that he had the very same stent procedure that Bernie Sanders had, right? Yeah. And that emerged in the context of comments, which again came up at the debate last night about Bernie's health. And I think there's still a lot of mystery and confusion around this. People seem to be really confused about the timeline here. And they think that there is somehow a point at which Bernie Sanders said there was going to be additional information released, when that was never true. The heart attack happened on October 3rd. Around October 24th, Bernie Sanders said we're going to release full medical records by the end of the year. On December 30th, he released full medical records. The press covered it as the medical records are out there. There's nothing really unexpected about it. The doctors say he's healthy. And we were off to the races until now. This kind of manufactured issue is being brought up again, I think, largely pretextually, because Bernie Sanders is leading with every major demographic and every major poll.
I will say, I saw even Dr. Sanjay Gupta came out and said, these are the letters that we offer each other. But now to the real substance of what I wanted to get to, which is about the broker convention question right there at the end. What did you make of that? Not a single candidate but Bernie would pledge to back whoever has the plurality of the delegates going into the convention as the eventual nominee.
Yeah, well,
that raised some eyebrows.
I think it's an admission that nobody on that stage thinks that they are going to have the plurality of delegates at the end of this, except for Bernie Sanders. So it shows what a strong position that we're in. And I think that when you saw the reaction from folks watching, real people as opposed to the pundit class, there was a lot of distaste for that perspective. So, part of our electability argument is that we have this phalanx, as Chris Matthews called the Bernie supporters last night, where they want to call us bros or analogize us to some kind of like Roman fighters. The reality is our base is strong, and there are a lot of people who really do see #OnlyBernie as the only solution to a myriad of really important problems that are integral to their survival, really existential problems.
Yeah, if that were to be what happens, which is very much a possibility, that Senator Sanders comes into the nomination with a plurality but not a majority of delegates, and then the party tries to take it from him on the second ballot, how do you think that that's going to go? What will the end result be?
Well, I don't want to get too far down the path of that hypothetical, because what we need to do, it's clear, is really blow this thing out so we're not in that scenario. We have, at this point, a pretty significant lead in Nevada, and we don't want to count our chickens before it's hatched. But this is exactly why looking at the polls, seeing us ahead, is not an excuse for anybody to rest on their laurels, to stay home, to stop door knockings, to stop volunteering, to stop doing the My Bernie journeys. We have seen proof now. There has been an admission across the board that unless we win this thing all out, there is going to be some difficulty at the end of this race. So that's even more encouragement for the phalanx to grow, for the Bernie bros to remain committed in their devotion to this candidate, and for all of us to be doing everything that we can to continue to push us forward.
Well, so that's one thing I'm curious on. Have you guys had communication with the National Party? Has the National Party even begun considering these types of scenarios? Because you were looking at it basically an existential threat to their own existence if this thing were to go awry.
Well, we don't want our supporters, we don't want a lot of the working class voters who are turning out for the first time voters who already previously didn't necessarily engage because they didn't have a lot of faith or confidence in the system. After the debacle that went down in Iowa, we don't want to overly concern people with these kind of logistical concerns at this point. So we want to keep people optimistic and focused on the very long road ahead still.
Sure.
Yeah. Take us down the field here a little bit, because you said you feel like you're in pretty good position to win in Nevada. I know an unbelievable number of early votes has been cast, which is really interesting. High turnout there, it looks like. for the longest time, Joe Biden has held a significant lead in South Carolina. That seems to be shrinking. I saw one poll in particular that had Senator Sanders actually tied with Biden for the lead. I mean, does that track with what you all are seeing as well? Do you think that you have a shot to actually win South Carolina?
One of the metrics that we most like to look at is actual enthusiasm on the ground. And when you look at politicians like Dahlia Myers, who's this woman who is the subject of our first South Carolina ad, someone who used to be a Biden supporter, a Biden endorser, who says in her endorsement video, look, I looked around at my constituents. I looked at where the lines were, where the enthusiasm was. The candidate that seemed to be addressing the issues that my constituents thought were most crucial to their lives, and it was Bernie Sanders. And I couldn't sit on the sidelines and not do something about the fact that the obvious direction of enthusiasm was heading in one direction. And when you care about electability, if you say that beating Trump is the number one thing, then you cannot ignore the fact that Bernie Sanders has the fundraising engine that can keep us going through all the way and actually compete with someone like Donald Trump, who has all of the lobbyists and special interest money at his back. The crowd, the enthusiasm, you can't compete with the MAGA hat crew and all of their energy if you are a milquetoast candidate at the likes of Bloomberg, who is almost explicitly promising people the status quo.
Yeah. Let me ask you also about just the general game plan going into Super Tuesday. So I know that Bernie's going to be spending, I think it's a Nevada night. He's going to be in California because that's where early votes are really going down. How is the strength looking on Super Tuesday broadly, and then how are you looking at the map? Is there plans internally that if this thing is going to go all the way to the convention? Because I know that affects how the campaign will go for the rest of the time.
I mean, look, you really can't predict these things. The betting markets look good for us.
They do. Although they had Bloomberg up at one point.
Well, not after last night.
I'm afraid. We're selling off hard on Bloomberg last night.
Bloomberg.
Right. But look, you don't ever want to overstate the case, right? But we are feeling very strong, and that is a direct testament to the work that is going on the ground. We have had the benefit, because of all of these small dollar donations that we've had, to have more of a ground game in a lot of these states than some other candidates like Pete Buttigieg, who had to concentrate all of their efforts in Iowa because they just didn't have the broad base of funding. They didn't have the broad base of volunteer support to put together the kind of infrastructure that we've been able to do across the board. And now we're ramping up even further, redeploying some of our Iowa and New Hampshire state staff who are now battle trained and ready to go to other parts of the country. And the results are there. You're seeing it in the polls. You're seeing us now number one in every major ethnic group, number one with black voters, number one with white voters, number one with Latino voters. You have us at 64% of Latino voters in Nevada.
That's huge.
You know, I saw someone last night, I believe Claire McCaskill, it was Jason Johnson who mentioned that, the Latino vote is still diffuse and gettable.
Yes.
Diffuse and gettable. Okay, well, I don't know that 64% of the Latino vote in Nevada and the rest of the candidates in double digit is what I would call diffuse. I think that's a pretty overwhelming mandate at that point, and we're really proud of the policies and the approach that we've taken that has earned the vote of all of those constituents.
Yeah, I mean, look, in fairness to Dr. Johnson, you guys have kind of destroyed all of his other talking points, so he's got to hold on to something here, Briahna.
Look,
Give the man something to hold on to.
We all make mistakes.
Another question I had for you, I watched the CNN town hall with Senator Sanders the other night, and he got a question about, okay, if you're the nominee, Bloomberg has said he wants to spend $1 billion to help whoever the Democratic nominee is. Would you accept that help? And at least to my ears, he wasn't really clear with his answer. So could you clear that up? I mean, does he welcome that help or not?
The answer is no. The campaign will not be taking any of Michael Bloomberg's money. Look, we have been the campaign at the vanguard of understanding what the negative role of money in politics are. And look, I'll tell this anecdote. There are people who, much like Donald Trump, thought that Bloomberg being financially independent meant that he was somehow free to be more attentive to the needs of the people. Oh, he's not accountable to the lobbyist, therefore he's going to be a better candidate. But the reality is, when you're not accountable to anyone, including the people, you are not accountable to anyone, including the people.
Right.
And that is something that people need to keep front and center, and something that this campaign is really cognizant of. And luckily, we are best positioned compared to everybody else in the race to be able to walk away from that money. If he wants to give to down ballot candidates, if he wants to help out in other ways, that's for the individuals and those who are the recipients of that money. That's for the DNC to decide. But this campaign is confident about its ability to fundraise independently, and the kind of policies that we can put forward, having that detachment from any kind of negative political influence.
So last question on this, because I think this is a fascinating dynamic, which is if you become the Democratic nominee, you're going to be in a position where the Democratic establishment, who loads many of, frankly loads the campaign, is going to have to choose. I don't think they're going to choose Trump. How are you going to square, either drawing or using support, which you don't necessarily want and they don't necessarily want to give?
You mean with respect to the
with
Bloomberg
the Dem
money
establishment?
question?
No, I mean the Bloomberg money represents all these different Democratic institutions throughout D.C. who have spent the last year tarnishing the Sanders campaign.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to fall in line eventually. Do you want them to fall in line? Are they irrelevant to your mission? How do you look at that?
Look, at the end of the day, we are Democrats. We are running on the Democratic Party ticket. Most of the people who are participating in this campaign are Democrats, registered Democrats, and proudly so. There are members in the campaign like David Sirota who roundly get, criticized on the internet for not being enough of a Democratic, affiliate. But his wife is a Democratic,
she's a rep.
candidate, representative in Colorado. So, the reality is that after all of this is over, there needs to be a healing process. This isn't a campaign that's interested in hurting or destroying or vengefully, wagging a finger and saying, I was right, you were wrong. This is about a movement to shift the party left in a direction that I think a lot of people who are party members always wish they could head in. A lot of people, I think, who made choices to make certain compromises in their political career didn't do it because they wanted to, but did it because they thought that that was the only way to move forward, that was how you play the game, as I think one candidate said it earlier this year. And some people, I think, are going to be really pleased about the fact that Bernie Sanders unsettled their expectations about what you had to do to get ahead in politics. And we'll be all too happy to embrace the kinds of policies that they embraced in their younger days in a previous iteration of American politics. And we will see a stronger, more renewed, reinvigorated Democratic Party that has a broader base of support than has ever before and can paint the map blue in a way that we haven't seen since the days of FDR.
It's going to be interesting, Briahna. Thank you.
Thank you, Briahna. Great to have you.
As always.
Coming up, it is Team Rising's turn to debate last night's debate, and we have a super panel for that, so stay tuned.